of directors can only approve duly reviewed and audited accounts respectively, which is against the law. So I think this is creating a lot of confusion. This needs to be immediately changed, and I would suggest that the Southern Region Committee should also perhaps advise the Council to write to the SECP that this requirement is creating confusion. And it needs to be this frequently asked questions, and these requirements need to be amended immediately. Audit committees requirements. The chairman of the audit committee shall be an independent director who shall not be a chairman of the board, already covered by Hashmi Saab. I think it's a very good requirement that the chairman of the audit committee has to be an independent director. This is universal practice. The board shall satisfy itself such that at least one member of the audit committee has relevant financial skills, expertise and experience. Again, this is also a universal practice, good requirement. Also, I think the code has required the chairman of the board and the chairman of the audit committee need to be separated. This is also a good requirement. What is problematic is that this option that secretary of the audit committee, either company secretary or head of internal audit, but not CFO. I personally think that head of internal audit should not be the chairman of the audit committee, secretary of the audit committee. The reason is that head of internal audit is an executive function. He is head of internal audit and he reports to the audit committee functionally, but the audit committee's functions go beyond internal audit. They also have the responsibility to oversee the external audit function, the financial reporting function, internal control function. So, while the head of internal audit is a key resource, if you make him the secretary of the audit committee, he will be recording all the notes relating to the external audit, relating to the other functions of the audit committee. Now the code also requires that, and this is where the inconsistency, specific inconsistency comes, that the audit committee should have at least one meeting with the external auditors without the presence of the head of internal audit. So if he is the secretary, or if he is recording the minutes, he has access to minutes, then that provision is also defeated. It is a unique requirement in Pakistan. It is not a good practice. It was originally when 2002 code was introduced, actually in the draft code, it was proposed that the head of internal audit committee, audit should be the secretary of the audit committee. And at that time, I had written on it and I had I wrote to the chairman of the SECP also, and then I had discussions with Ibrahim Sadat Saab and Masood Naqvi Saab and convinced them, and so they removed that requirement. But somehow this, although it's not a requirement now, but this option, as if it is a best practice, has been reintroduced, which in my opinion is not a good practice. Chairman of the audit committee and the engagement partner of the external audit firm are required to be present in the AGM. Again, a very good requirement. But in order to, in the AGM, annual general meeting, we have this problem. I think in Pakistan, the annual general meetings, we know, are not effective. It would have been better if not only the chairman of the audit committee, but chairman of the board and chairmen of the other committees should have also been required to attend the audit committees, to attend the AGMs, to ensure the effectiveness of the annual general meetings. That is not required. The requirement, new requirement is the HR committee and remuneration committee with at least 3 members. This is, I think, already covered by Hashmi Saab. It's a good requirement. But as I mentioned earlier, it would have been good to have the requirement of a nominating committee also, which is not required. I think this is a good requirement that head of internal audit cannot be a director. This is something new also. There is a detailed provision on the outsourcing of internal audit. So what is required is that outsourcing is permitted, but you need to have head of internal audit as a full-time employee. I think there was no need to do this because, it depends on the size of the companies also. The smaller size companies, if they outsource their internal audit, first of all, if you have your own head of internal audit, then it becomes co-sourcing, it is not outsourcing, because certain parts are being outsourced, so it's co-sourcing. If you are allowing outsourcing, then it is not appropriate to say that you should also have the head of internal audit, so it will be a lot of burden on the small companies. I don't think this is a good requirement, especially for small companies it will be burdensome. Requirement for management letter previously was 30 days, has been extended to 45 days. I think it's good for external audit firms, perhaps they have more time now. But I think it would have been better to continue with 30 days requirement, because if the management letter is not submitted in time, then it loses its value. Also, significant matters are required to be communicated with the audit committee. So broadly, let me cover what is still missing. I think it is very important for a good code to define the tone at the top, which should be emphasized, that the board members and senior management should act as role models for the organization, and they have to not only the values and ethics and integrity that they talk about, they should live those values. That should be there in a code. Fiduciary responsibility and working in the interest of the company, I have already covered, not in the interest of the nominating organizations, needs to be highlighted. Guidance on board and committee evaluations need to be included. Board to carry out, I think this is also very important. I covered it a bit. Correct me if I am wrong, Hashmi Sahab, there is no specific requirement that board should at least annually carry out an evaluation, performance evaluation of the CEO. This is very critical for good governance. Basically, board's role is to appoint the competent CEO and management and then hold him accountable and carry out evaluation. If he's doing good, reward him. If not good, correct, you should take some corrective action. And also, in certain circumstances, do the unpleasant job of replacing the CEO. So those things should be in the code. At least performance evaluation of the CEO is very, very critical to good corporate governance. Nominating committee concept and governance committee concept needs to be introduced. Incorporating sustainability in governance and reporting, criteria for directors' appointment. Requirement for reporting on internal control, as I said, should be brought in line with the combined code, rather than requiring this statement of internal control is sound in design and effectively implemented. It would be better to, ask the directors to carry out a review of internal control and provide a description of internal control in line with the Turnbull report. Confirmation of directors, which the director is considered to be independent. Elaboration of responsibilities of chairman's role and the chairman of the board and the CEO. Also, I think it is a good practice, if you want the board's objectivity to be maintained and separation from management, then the board should have executive sessions. Executive sessions are those where only non-executive directors or the board members sit and evaluate, or discuss certain issues without the presence of the operating management, the chief executive and other operating management. So it would be good to educate our boards by having executive sessions. There is no concept of executive sessions in Pakistan. Guidance requirements on shareholder communications, holding effective general meetings and robust disclosure need to be improved. Here are some additional requirements which from the King code that I referred to, especially relating to the corporate citizenship and the board's role as a focal point, which I think should be considered. The directors have to ensure that the company operates ethically with integrity as a responsible corporate citizen.